Hello everyone, welcome to the channel Anthropohistory and Colonialism. I am Victor Collins, anthropologist, and we will enter together in this inedit course, which is gonna be offered either to experts, researchers on anthropology and history, but also non-initiates and lay people, which will require a accessible language, leaving apart more of the academic style of presentation. Okay, and I'm gonna try and look forward to share the concepts, the explanation, and break down some problems in a accessible and joyful way for you all and also for me as the presentation. Okay, well, so the the central subject, which is Western colonialism, implies for us to hit and deconstruct the mainstream prevailing narratives that we all been taught. So I refer to the fallacy that the Western civilization has been started through Rome, Athens, and Jerusalem, sort of 4 to 5, 6,000 years ago. Okay. The other fallacy is that the expansion of the Holy See, which is this later one, where we are still living under, even in modern times. Okay, so all one has to do is check all the enterprises and the corporations, universities with the term Koluba, which is a key term, uh, in the suggestion that this is a beneficial expansion with universal benefits for all of those that have received it. Okay, and also the uh, the misinformation taught in history books that the lands that were visited by the Holy See. So I mentioned all of these sailors and also agents of secret societies as aristocratic powers like Columbus, uh, Américo Vespuccio, Vasco da Gama, and Cabral, uh, as being discovered inedited lands that were habitated by so-called primitive savages that were considered to be out of history people. Okay, so people dislocated from the wider historical process of of uh, world civilization, which in this case, of course, is the Mediterranean complex of civilization and Europe. Okay, and that these peoples were actually uh, in a sort of infantile stage of development. Okay, so all of this must be challenged, and that's what we're gonna look for. Okay, well, so uh, in the cover of the course, we have here a photo of Saint Brendan the Navigator, which was at the time of uh, Cabral, Vespuccio, Columbus, and Vasco da Gama, already established salesman with sort of a very important and even legendary uh, maritime voyages okay, which include the famous island of High Brazil, and also was considered to be uh, a very, very, very deeply experienced salesman that was simply an incredible reference for all of those that were departing at that time. A reference such as his salesman experience, like the visit to High Brazil and many other islands, were all famous and presented in the maps of uh, under the map making and the cartographers of its time. Okay, nowadays it's different, of course, because the discourse has changed. But when we do research to the maps of these times, including the Piri Reis map, okay, we will find there the island of High Brazil, okay, which simply implies that St. Brendan, and including the totally excluded and denied from history salesman called William Harris, which uh, was simply the man that Almirante Colon, right, which is the real name for Columbus, has visited after he received the approval flag or approval sign to sail across the ocean by the Spanish crown, okay, of Isabella and Fernando, queen and king, okay. So the alternative story research tells that Columbus went into Ireland and looked for William Harris in Galway and received from William Harris the know-how into uh, uh, um, how to make possible the voyage between Europe and the departure from the port of Palos way ahead into the Americas. Okay, so we've been told that Columbus sailed by the stars like the Moors, and that they had some technology that allowed them to make the voyages, but these are actually misinformation discourses. Okay, because of course sailing by the stars was nothing new at the time. Okay, there were many sort of astrological cartography of parallels and meridians and the constellations, and this for a long time, since ancient times, okay, that sailors use this kind of device, okay, and uh, and none of this is any news for the time of Columbus, okay, neither the um, yeah, well, the discourse on the over the Moors is more a political one, because they had they just had defeated the Moors militarily to take the south of Portugal and Spain back, like a Granada and Alhambra, for example. Okay, and uh, also the discourse of, which is misinformation, of the impossibility of crossing the ocean and the inexistence of lands, the ocean being pervaded and filled with maritime dangers, like monsters and all sorts of this kind of childish stories. Okay, so all of this was a way of uh, um, viabilizing, making possible the voyage for Columbus under the Spanish crown. Okay, but also of negating and and blocking from the historical discourse the fact that there was already, and for many many centuries, a tradition of salesmen who most commonly departed from Ireland, okay, not only to the Americans but also to the north, to Iceland, to maybe Greenland. I'm not sure. I still have to check this out. Okay, Canada and America, and these were very experienced salesmen, which had not only the know-how, okay, but also the technology of the 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 parallels and meridians under the stars, okay. Uh, and actually, this is a millennial old experience of exchange through what is called the Arcadian civilization, which is, or the Fenians, okay, which is this complex of salesmen, of Maggae, of druids, and all sorts of men and women of knowledge. Is very important to point out that in this earlier cycle, which is not colonialist and exploitative in nature, but spiritual in nature, women played a leading role, okay, including in the navigational voyages, and they were basically ruled under the Polarian stars, okay, the so-called the yeah, the North Star, and in Irish culture is known as the Ulster, which is the Great Star, okay, which Polaris located under the Little Bear. So Arcadians means the sons of the Little Bear, okay, and this is the big secret that the later authorities, aristocracy, salesmen, bankers, military organizations under the Holy See, centered in Rome, wanted to hide and conceal at all costs. Okay, right. So, so there we have uh, two pivotal figures that express this millennial old and very ancient tradition that I assume is going on since the post-Atlantean cataclysmic times, okay, known as the Fenians or the Arcadians, okay, uh, which in which Saint Brendan the Navigator is one of the exponents, okay. In the following we will check the etymology of the name Brandon that does suggest this thesis also, okay. And uh, William Harris from Galway, which was considered an expert navigator, okay, and which Columbus has rushed right upon to take advantage of his knowledge and to ask for his guidance, okay. So basically, this is the whole alternative and hidden history under the Holy See expansion. Okay? Resuming, there was no such thing as a new world, and not only the Fenians and the Arcadians, as exposed by the great Cormac Darry, okay, and his amazing work, Irish Wisdom Preserved in the Bible and Pyramids, which I consider, with all due respect and humility, to be one of the key works of the Western world. Okay, uh, certainly as important as Freud, Marx, and Jung, and Nietzsche, right? Uh, the uh, the Holy See complex of power was deeply in the known of this. So for this information, I suggest the work of Ryan McMahon, okay, in his channel, Mr. Ryan McMahon. And the articles are called False Columbus and Aria, IRA, and Ireland, okay, which explains behind all the propaganda and the misinformation what was the truth hidden uh, behind these discourses, and why the new powers under the Holy See, okay, which we can mention the both aristocratic leaders, such as the Tudor dynasty of England, okay, and Queen Elizabeth, and the Castilla and Aragon um, monarchic powers. So why they were they so concerned about spreading all that misinformation, spreading fear, quoting scientists like Marin de Tir, okay, another Greek and early authors with their studies about the circumference of the globe to prove that the ocean was uncrossable, okay? And of course, what we all heard, the basic motivations for the trips, which was mineral extraction, gold mainly, okay? Spices, what is this all about, okay? And taking the cross and converting the native peoples to Christianity. So what also is this all about, hidden behind the main discord? Okay, right. Well, underneath Saint Brendan, there's an image written IRA. Okay, this image was a photo that I took inside what I would call Caesar's Palace, right? In Brazil, where I reside, it's called Palácio dos Bandeirantes. And Bandeirantes were basically agents of the crown and the secret societies uh, engaged in capturing slaves from the indigenous people, the native people, and make them show the way for the mineral well. Okay, so that's what they were doing, right? Well, um, so it's very curious that inside Caesar's palace there is the term IRA, which is one of the terms for Ireland, and two pyramids, because the previous the previous maritime expansion that was spiritual in nature. So once again, I truly recommend the reading of Conor Maggae, Irish Wisdom Preserved in the Bible, which is an absolute masterpiece, okay, of the ultimate importance. And I look forward to render service in translation. So any editor in Brazil, in Portuguese, excuse me, that would like to have this edition in Portuguese, I am voluntarily interested in translating this so powerful work. Okay, well, and the pyramids represent the land of Cam. Okay, so before the Abrahamic invasions of the Nile Valley, that civilization was called Cam, hence the word in Portuguese química or alquimia, in English chemistry, alchemy, and many others. Okay, because the civilization of Cam simply was a confederate with the Arcadians and the Athenians. So this was a civilization based on the leader of Druids and Maggae, aside the aristocracy. Okay, the problem and the subject of the gods must be addressed too. So what can I say in a brief way now is that in the Mayan civilizations, in the earlier maritime expansion, uh, these deities, what I will call magical deities, okay, they were of a healing and a positive kind, leading and working aside the druids, okay, which were basically operating all of these megaliths. So anyone can verify for itself. Many studies have been done that the megaliths in Ireland, like Tara or um, in Britain, Stonehenge, even in France or in Scotland, Colonialism, are all aligned with the uh, the Nile Valley, basically the pyramids of Giza. Okay, there's another one in Britain today called Avebury. Okay, uh, and also in America, which they found many serpent mounds and dolmens and cromlechs. Well, this is a strong evidence that suggests that there was a confederacy between these three regions and even further, which we are not gonna get into now. Okay, and a civilization that was ruled by Maggae, by the aristocracy. Okay, and the term area is very important term that we will deal throughout the course. Okay, in the sense of deconstructing the deceptions and the mis-narratives that we will be told about the term. Okay, uh, and that the valley of Kem was a key birthplace for this confederacy and also for the navigational expansion that was a spiritual and a healing in nature. Okay. Later, more or less in the 14th dynasty of Cam, came the invasion of the Hyksos in the Nile Valley, which basically turned the tide to a imperial civilization. Okay, and that's the core of the secret societies, of um, the symbology and the terminology that are behind still the modern day present imperialism. Okay, so these two pyramids in the image represent that the delta of the Nile, right? In the earlier cycle offered a key pivotal role in the maritime expansion. ruled by the Maggae. Okay, and one of the proofs, apart the megalithic alignments that we have, is the linguistical proof. So I suggest a study uh, between a study throughout the modern languages with attention to terms, to words that begin with the terms ast, ast, ma, brid, like as from Bridget, okay, and Anna, A-N-A, okay. So these terms derive from the Magan times, okay, uh, more or less before the 14th dynasty, okay, when the Arcadia came and the native peoples of Amaraka, which is the earlier term pointed out to America, worked together, okay, in one single flux of activity, okay, and when the tide has changed or happened what Nietzsche would call a transvaluation of all values, the imperial mode of civilization took over, okay, and the Maggae were removed, the magical deities left the leading position, and then came the so-called gods, which also implies in a genetic hybridization of humanity, okay, and also a total inversion of purpose and value, where the earlier Earth grid, which was operated by the Maggae through the megaliths in the sense of healing the earth, became reversed into a control grid. Okay, and this explains a great deal why Britain today is considered to be the epicenter of world imperialism. Okay. Well, the previous slide uh, has to do with Saint Brendan the Navigator, and also the Cathedral of Saint Brendan. Okay, what is interesting to point out is that even that Saint Brendan is considered a uh, Christian saint, okay, aside Saint Columba and Saint Patrick, okay, uh, his life and activities are clearly backed by the earlier Magian foundations. So his name in Gaelic means translating beauty of the sun, right? Bre and Fin, or simply king, okay? And this parallels the uh, the long-term name for that island, which today is called Ireland, but whose true root term comes from its true root name comes from the term Eri, E-R-I, which is also Ari, okay. Later in a proper in a convenient moment, we are gonna open for the concept of Aria, which has been so much deeply corrupt by contemporary imperial powers, okay, such as the Third Reich and even the British Crown, okay. So the earlier terms for St. Brendan belong to this Gaelic to these Gaelic words, which means beauty of the sun, okay, and also uh, the land was considered to be uh, a Magian deity, a magical deity, or simply a goddess, okay, whose term is Eri or Eru, right? Therefore, it's clear that St. Brendan is a part of the earlier tradition of salesmen known as the Fenians or the Arcadians, which I assume to be operating since the post cataclysmic or Atlantean times. Okay, right. So, of course, Saint Brennan is considered to be a a Christian saint, a patron of Christianity, right? Articulated with the Bible. Okay. If one wants to make a deeper study of the Bible, I recommend Conor McGarry's work, Bible, an Irish book, which he proves that the whole origin of that knowledge is uh, Irish in name. Okay, so let's remember that the earlier terms for the word Ireland are Eri or Ari. Therefore, Ireland should be called Aria land. Okay, and please let's be patient until we enter to the term area, which is a very, very important subject because it will open to the connections between the far west, uh, Ireland or Ireland, and to the far east. Okay, which is a very, very, very interesting connection. Okay, so pardon me. Okay, so St. Brennan's pioneering sales activity for sure does does resemble with the earlier navigation culture, okay, of the Fenians.